All right, today's Mastery Quiz in Geometry, Mastery Quiz number 6, has to do with writing congruent statements. So what we need to do is look at the diagram and see if we can find some corresponding parts that are congruent. When I look at question number 1 here, it looks like I have two triangles, and the diagrams on the triangles indicate that angle D here and angle N with that same arc, that single arc there, means that they are congruent. They would be corresponding to each other. And the two triangles share point Y here, so Y would correspond with Y. And angle S here, actually angle DSN, is cut into two angles, but they are also congruent, designated by those double arcs there. So when I write my congruent statement, it's very important that I write the letters in the correct corresponding order. Now you can start your angles at any angle you wish. For example, one correct answer here, for me to write a congruent statement here, I've got two triangles that are congruent by angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side, and angle, angle, side. I can write my congruent statement any way I'd like to, but it's important that when I write my second part of the statement that the parts are corresponding to the first one. So I'm going to start with triangle. I'm going to go D, S, Y. Triangle DSY is going to be congruent to triangle. Since I started with point D here in my first triangle, the angle that corresponds with that in the second triangle is N. So I want to start with N, going back now over to S, because that corresponds with the other S, and then Y would be the third link in that chain. Does it have to be in that order? The answer is no. I could have used the letters in different orders. For example, another correct answer would be triangle. What if I wanted to go S, D, Y? Okay, that's fine. It's congruent to triangle. Well, this time I'd have to start with S again, but then I'd go over to N. I'd go S, N, Y. That's another correct answer, and there's others. But those are two examples of correct congruent statements for those two triangles. Really important when you write these congruent statements that when you're dealing with triangles, make sure you're using the triangle symbol when you write your congruent statements. Very important in geometry. Question number 2. Write a congruent statement for these two polygons. Now, with a polygon of this size, there's no symbol to write in front of the letters. It's just really important that you identify your parts in corresponding order. For example, I'm going to identify the pentagon 1 there, that first pentagon. I'm going to start with A. And then I'm just going to go to the long side. I'm going to go in this order. I'm going to say point A, then I'm going to angle down to F, then I'm going to angle down to B, over to C, over to G. Now, since I chose the A to begin the first pentagon, to naming the first pentagon, I got to figure out, okay, in that second diagram, that second pentagon, what's going to be corresponding to A? Well, I think we can all see that it would have to be the N. So I would have to start my second pentagon naming with point N. And now I have to be a little bit careful, because in the first one I used the longest side. I went from A over to F. So if I'm starting at N, the longest side would take me to M. And then I'm just going to keep going in order there, go up to the J, the P, and the L, and that would be my correct congruent statement. Now, is that the only correct statement? Absolutely not. I can start wherever, in any order I'd like to. In other words, I could have started with the C at the bottom of the first one. What if I started with the C here? And then I went over to the B, and then over to the F, and then up to the A, and then to the G. Okay, that would have to be congruent to? Well, now the tricky part is picking out what point would correspond with C in the other shape. Well, you can imagine if you took this pentagon here, angle 1, and did a rotation with it, what would it match up to? I think C would match up with J. And then I'd go over to P, down to the L, to the N, and then to the M. And there are many, many, many other correct answers to this question. Just making sure that however you name your first shape, will determine how you want to name your second shape. Just making sure the angles are in corresponding order. One other thing, when you're naming a shape like this, you want to take your points and name them in order. You don't want to be going back and forth. In other words, this would be a wrong answer. You would not want to go A down to C, then over to B maybe, and then F, and then G. You can see that in this particular case, I skipped. I went all the way down through here. And you don't want to do that. That's not how you name a polygon. The letters, the points have to be named in consecutive order, one way or the other, and then your second name has to be in consecutive order so that they are corresponding. Well, that should do it for this one. Good luck.